4 things that keep human trafficking going. One is vulnerable people. If you don't mind me using you as an example. People who have been abused. 95 to 99%, if not 100% of the women I work with have been sexually abused. How about you? What do you have a percentage?
About the same.
About the same.
Yes.
Okay. There are other reasons. There, poverty, LGBTQ issues. You're rejected by your family, and where do you go then? Well, certainly, society is going to reject you too, and government certainly is not helping with that. So all sorts of people who are vulnerable because they cannot get food, shelter, love, the most fundamental things in life taken care of. So, but not everybody who is vulnerable to human trafficking is trafficked. That's because the second thing it takes is a trafficker. Okay, think of it like a bicycle wheel. It takes a trafficker. Why do traffickers do this? Money. Human trafficking worldwide is a $150 billion industry. Putting that into perspective, that is more than what Coca-Cola, Nike, and Starbucks combined in a year bring in. That's human trafficking. So it's money. So you got your vulnerable people exploited by traffickers. Why are traffickers doing this, and how are they supported? Consumers. Consumers are people who are either buying slave-made goods, and we are great importers of that, so buy fair trade, or they're people, and I don't want to sound sexist, I want to thank you, Chip, for being here. Because take a look, how many men are here in this room? We need to get the word out, and Me Too is doing a great job, but we've got to say, it's time to stop buying sex. Because where there is a demand for all that money, there's going to be someone who sells, and there's going to be someone who is used as that object. So the last category of what keeps this going, any other members of society, card-carrying members of society in this room besides me? Society will turn a blind eye to all of this. Maybe they're uneducated. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Every single person in this room now knows that people are being bought for sex locally. Now the question is, are you going to turn a blind eye? Are you going to kind of ignore it? Or are you going to go out and do something? Traffickers are really hoping that you'll take this information and you'll go, wow, that's a really difficult thing. And that's where it ends. It's when people begin to fight, and people begin to give, and people begin to help Anne-Marie do what she needs to do, that things change. That was a really long-winded answer, but hopefully, now you sort of have a picture to say, here is how we end this.
How do the girls get contacted? How does the trafficker, a man, know that she's vulnerable? How do they get to her phone to know that she is vulnerable?
You want to take that one? You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the insidious thing about society. I want each and every one of you to think about, Chip, this doesn't apply to you. When you were a 14-year-old girl, what was your self-esteem like, and what did you want? Did anybody else besides me just want a boyfriend? Oh my word. Ladies, we are nothing if we don't have a man to tell us that we're wonderful. Yeah. Does this ring true for anybody in this room? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So we have taught girls through the media that they need to be what? You tell me what the media is telling girls.
Pretty.
Pretty?
Sexy.
Sexy?
Acquiescent.
Acquiescent? And how many of you believed that?
When we were 14.
Okay. Believe that we have to be.
That's all we do.
Yeah. And you know what? We still see the dregs of this. Do I go, I really don't care that my hair is starting to turn gray? Don't worry that I'll never get another speech again because I look too old. Okay?
You know, my twin daughters, one is more on tomboyish level, so she's not in the mirror. I mean, she does her hair, but not like the other one. The other one will not even go to the store for me unless her hair is perfect and her clothes are perfect. She will not walk out the door.
So they don't have to go searching too far to find a female who would really like some admiration from a guy. So all these phone applications, we list bunches of them in the book. Phone applications, meeting people in a Starbucks, in a mall or whatever. Please don't get the idea that your kids are going to, or grandkids are going to be abducted at the King of Prussia Mall. I hear that every day. It doesn't happen. Abducted, but she was screaming and my cousin's aunt's girlfriend's children that happened to, I know. No, it doesn't. They meet a girl, ask her out on a date, and then it begins to happen in a remarkably natural way. It is by striking out a conversation to a girl who does not feel good about herself, or a grown woman. At 60 years old, folks, we are not immune. What's the oldest person you've worked with at Dawn's place?
62.
62?
You mentioned years ago, I remember, that the pimps that are like pick up the girls at the King of Prussia Mall will know in 5 minutes whether the girl is going to be the type that's going to go with them. I remember you told us that.
Or
They can pick up.
anywhere. So is there somebody who has pretty good self-esteem who would be willing to do a quick exercise with me? And I'll show you how this works, because they say this is what we need to watch out for.
I'll do.
Okay. By the way, Linda, you look very nice today.
Thank you so much.
Linda will not be trafficked. That was the situation. Okay? You ask a girl or a woman, you know, if a stranger approaches you, okay, you knew me and that kind of stuff, but they say a pimp can walk up to a girl and know instantly if he says, "You look very nice today," and she goes, "Thank you very much." He is not interested because she has self-esteem. If she goes, "No, I don't." How long did that take? Here's what he does. "Well, I think you're really nice looking. Your boyfriend must think you're just wonderful. He's a lucky guy." "I don't have a boyfriend." "Well, those guys are crazy out there." "We're at a mall." "You like pizza? Emery, you like pizza?
Yeah.
What's your favorite pizza, please?"
Pepperoni.
"Mine too."
Yeah.
"Can I grab a slice?"
Sure.
"Would you get up and walk with me? Go get a slice of pizza? We're at the mall." And everyone thinks it's the mall. It's the park. It's the bookshop. It's online. It is the phone, because every kid carries with them in their back pocket and the access to today's market and street corner. "Wow, I've never had so much fun with you playing Roblox. Want to go into a private chat room? Want to meet for real? Well, where do you live?" And this is what you lived through. This is why it's so devastating. "What do you see outside your window? Do you got any sisters? What time does your mom work? Let's go on a real date we could meet." That is how, and that in particular, that's how a Romeo pimp works. There are other pimps, there are gorilla pimps and finesse pimps, and I mean, they're all just, you know, there's sneaker pimps. That is the 16-year-old boy who's selling the 12-year-old girl at recess to his friends. Yeah. There are lots of situations. The gorilla pimp is, of course, the one who's violent, uses force. That's what we're dealing with.
Has the Me Too movement helped in any way? Like, are people stronger? Are the women stronger than they were? Or, you know, are the numbers still big?
So she can.
I believe some are, you know. I do believe that there's some stronger, you know, and I believe that it comes down to, you know, like the plates, broken pieces. You know, it depends. It depends. How low your self-esteem is, you know, and Carol talked about it. If you have low self-esteem about yourself, and it doesn't matter if you're a child or a woman, you know, and you get caught up in that kind of a situation, you're in.
Lori, you had a question actually a while back.
Oh,
And-
it would fit in any time. I just wanted to say, if it's an appropriate time for this, that we do have an Art Sisters meeting next week. So I know you'll be talking to people individually, but people can bring in anything they want to that. And I'll get it to Carol because we live close by each other. So whatever you think you need.
And what do you need? The church can also, we can advertise it and have them bring stuff, things here.
Would you like to have it go to you?
I mean,
We need so let's divide this way. We really need monetary donations for that juvenile program. We're desperate
How can we
for
counter
that.
this through the schools? Maybe if all the schools knew to teach the girls at an early age that, I mean, is there any way of getting the word into the educational system so they can understand what could happen?
I think that's like networking, like we're sitting here speaking to a crowd of people right now. If you know anybody that's in the education field, then maybe put the word out. You were at a presentation, da-da-da, and maybe that way.
So education goes school district by school district. And I will tell you, it is very difficult. One of the things that one of the difficulties is, I can't just walk in to a school and say, here's what you need to be educated. And that's a good thing. It is, you know, you've got to present ID, you've got to be invited. You know, there are all sorts of rules now because of violence against children that you can't just walk in and do whatever you want. Parents don't necessarily want their kids to hear about sex trafficking.
It doesn't have to, I was thinking of just building their ego. So if it came from the top to all the teachers, to build their egos, to have them all feel good about themselves, to understand.
So how do you get to the top when teachers already have millions and millions of things that they've got to do? So here's what we've discovered. If it comes from the parents, themselves, where they get together as a body and say, we need to teach our children about this. School districts will address it, you know, each individual school district, and sometimes the individual schools themselves will do that. I have done some things for teachers in the Coatesville School District and other places. Another thing that we have found very effective in Chester County is the Crime Victim Center already does good touch, bad touch sorts of things. And by the way, as they will teach you, you don't have to worry quite as much about the stranger when children are little. Don't worry about the stranger. Worry about who's within your circle of homes and friendships. Okay? It's not, stranger danger was one of the worst things they ever did. Again, people are going to hear somebody scream. So it's working through Crime Victim Center then, where they're teaching about good touch, bad touch. And you can get it through, like, parents in Chester County don't want to hear about it. So what they've done is they're going through and they're talking about safe dating practices and safe employers. That is creative thinking. That's how you get through. And to talk about it that way, because if you address it head on, parents get pretty upset. And I will tell you, I do believe that children do have a right to their innocence. The difficulty is the average age of a girl when she enters formal sex trafficking. They used to call it the average age of formal entry into child prostitution. That's horrible. There is no such thing as a child prostitute. 11 to 14 years old. And when you think about the age when most kids are sort of really learning about sex and all this kind of stuff, it's long past for children who are 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, who are already being abused and sold. There was another question. Did I answer your question, Mary, or did we answer your question?
I don't know I don't know
How to get into schools?
yeah.
It's
how do
trickier
how
than
do
you
reach-
think, but if all of you go out and start talking to your kids who may have kids, and, just through the church to say, hey, here's what's going on. Have a program. Let's watch I Am Little Red together. And have Anne Marie come out and speak. To parents. Parents are eventually going to say, you know what? I'm not the only person who uses it. That's why we wrote the book.
I spoke at a Catholic girl high school, and this was many years ago I spoke there. And I felt, before I went to do the presentation, I was like, I'm not so sure, like I've been through a lot, and there's some stuff that maybe kids shouldn't hear, But after I was done doing the presentations, one of the young ladies came up to me and she says, I know exactly what you're talking about. She says, I live in the area. So she sees it every day. She sees it every day. Yep.
And that movie's I Am Little.
So the movie is called I Am Little Red. It's the one that
My
we showed
twins
to-
watched.
The twins.
Right.
It is actually something. It's a very short video designed by the guy who did Toy Story, and he worked with something like 12 child victims of sex trafficking. They did this. It is designed for youth, but I actually have shown it to adults because it's so quickly and through story form kind of encapsulates what human trafficking really is, what it looks like. They call them wolves instead of pimps. What wolves, and they, instead, I am Little Red, and the storyline goes, but instead of going to grandma's house, this is where you can end up, and there are wolves along the way. Here are the 4 classifications of wolves, and here's what they're going to tell you. It's really brilliantly done. So I actually show that to adults and say, folks, what would you think about having someone, a psychologist and a survivor come in and now work with you and your kids at the same time to see this? Because you can't just show kids this video and go, great, now let's go home and finish our homework and chores, because there are going to be questions. And especially if someone is being harmed, you have to have someone right there to pick up the pieces that are now crumbled on the floor.
Can we see it on YouTube?
It is not on YouTube. I own the video, however, and if you would like to borrow it, get in touch with me. It's about $99 or something like that. And it does come with a curriculum, which they strongly suggest you use. It's another reason why I tend to use it with adults, and I let people who are really, really great with groups of kids. I'm great with 2 kids at once, especially if I know them, and I can make cookies. Doesn't work that way in most of real life. I work through relationships, so you've got to get someone pretty special to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you all.
Thanks for all
Can we buy the book?
Yes.
Oh, books over here, yes. Anne Marie will sign them, I'm sure.
And so will Carol.